I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. Say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but for those of you that are just tuning in for the very first time, have you ever noticed that everything the Biden administration touches, they break? Well, you're not going to believe this. Not too many news organizations are reporting on it, but it's one more example of how when you put Democrats, and especially liberal Democrats, in positions of power, they go out of their way to destroy things that are already working. And that's just a cold hard fact, by the way. Attorney generals across the country are pushing the Biden administration to back down on a new rule they say will effectively exclude Christian families from fostering kids and jeopardize the foster care system nationwide. That's right. This administration that has completely destroyed our border, everything that our veterans did in our military in Afghanistan. This administration is going after law and order and police. This administration that's destroying our oil and gas industry. That's just not enough for them. So now they're going to go after foster kids. Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall, along with 18 other AGs across America, sent a letter yesterday to the Department of Health and Human Services alerting them that a new proposed rule that alters requirements for foster care families violates the Constitution of the United States and discriminates against people who practice the Christian faith. Couldn't make this shit up if you were trying. In addition to discriminating against religion, the Attorney General argued that the proposed rule will harm children by limiting the number of available foster homes, harm families by risking kinship placements, and harm states by increasing costs and decreasing care options. These injuries will be suffered while HHS fails to solve a problem that the proposed rule does not even approve exists in foster care. The AG is right. The rule, safe and appropriate foster care placement requirements, would mandate that foster parents and families utilize a foster child's identified pronouns, chosen name, and allow the child to dress in an age-appropriate manner that the child believes reflects their self-identified gender identity and expression. Guess it's going to leave out those that are in the Islamic faith because they don't believe in gender equality. According to the letter, the rule seeks to accomplish indirectly what the Supreme Court found unconstitutional just 2 years ago. Remove faith-based providers from the foster care system if they will not confirm their religious beliefs on sexual orientation and gender identity. The Supreme Court, back in 2021, in a case called Fulton versus City of Philadelphia, ruled that Philadelphia's refusal to contract with a Catholic social service group unless it agreed to certify same-sex couples as foster parents, violated the First Amendment. The letter notes that HHS anticipates that the number of children in the foster care system would increase to roughly 416,500 homeless children in their care by 2027. As of 2022, there were reported 391,000 children in foster care looking for a forever home. The Attorney Generals argue that caring for children in need is a duty of the Christian faith, and moreover, that the foster care system would be crippled without Christian families opening their home to foster care kids. The foster care system depends on individuals and organizations of faith, the letter argues. For example, the AG cited that in Arkansas, one faith-based group was created with recruiting almost half of the foster homes in the state. And in New Mexico, every private placement agency is that of a Christian organization. That would mean that kids in New Mexico are just screwed. Arkansas as well. According to the 2002 study cited in the letter, foster parents who are recruited through a church or other religious organizations foster children at 2.6 years longer than the average foster parent. And participating Christians are 3 times more likely to seriously consider fostering than the general population, according to a study by the Barron Group. States need faith-based organizations in their foster care system. The proposed rule would drive individuals and organizations of faith away, which will increase the strain on the system by reducing the number of available foster homes. The federal government should be searching for ways to increase the number of foster homes, not decrease them. Attorney General Marshall accused President Biden of harassing his state of Alabama. Joe Biden continues to harass our state and others like it by threatening to withhold federal funding for children in need if we do not conform to their liberal ideology, but our values are not for sale. Since the first century, Christians across the globe have answered the call to provide a home and a family to children who had neither. Alabama boasts a particular strong faith-based foster care and adoption community, and it will fight this administration for them every step of the way, he added. Everything they touch, they break. Even things that aren't broke. I want you to think about that for a moment. If you're a Christian organization and you have guiding principles under what you consider to be factual information in the Bible and your religious beliefs, if that entails that you're not going to let little Johnny dress up as a girl in your house, then Christian organizations are taken off the list. And these kids, in the hundreds of thousands, will have no place to go because no other organizations are stepping up to take them in. Those liberal organizations, they're only stepping up to help out illegal aliens, not American kids in the foster care system. The New York Times warned its audience that President Biden's deep unpopularity with young voters, even in a potential rematch with former President Donald Trump, is a clear signal that should trouble his supporters. Virtually every poll across America show a close race between Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump among young voters. New York Times chief political analyst Nate Cohn wrote, "Not just recent New York Times polling. Too many of our readers and others, it's a little hard to believe. So hard to believe that it seems to them the polls are flat out wrong, he wrote. We see no evidence of that, Cohen added. In our polling, the problem for Mr. Biden isn't too few young Democrats. It's that many young Democrats just don't like him. They wouldn't want their grandfather serving as president, and they sure as hell don't want him serving as president. Cohen broke down the numbers on Biden's low approval ratings, even within his own party. Mr. Biden has just a 76-20 lead among young voters, either registered as Democrats or have previously voted in a Democratic primary, he wrote. It's just a 69-24 lead among young, non-white Democrats. The dissent exists among the self-identified Democrats, Democrat lenders, Biden 20 voters, and so on. The kind of interpret dissent is rare, but not without precedence in our polling, Cohen wrote. I've seen in our congressional polls of highly educated suburbs full of Romney Clinton voters, and I've even seen it once before in a statewide presidential race. Our final polls in 2016, when Mr. Trump suddenly surged to obtain 30% of white working class registered Democrats. It is hard to believe, but it's fairly easy to explain, and it's raised a serious possibility that Donald Trump will become the next president of the United States. Cohen argued that Biden's prevailing weakness among young voters was fairly straightforward to explain. Young voters are by far the likeliest to say it's just too old to be an effective president, he wrote. Many are upset about his handling of the Israel-Hamas war, but Biden's unpopularity with young voters long predates the 2024 presidential race. And all of this is against the backdrop of Mr. Biden's longstanding weakness among young voters who weren't enthusiastic about him in 2020, and Mr. Trump's gains among non-white voters or who are disappointingly young, he wrote. So, and this is a fact, you can look at all the polls. Not only is Biden losing the young vote, but thankfully and finally, the Black Americans are waking up and realizing how damaging the Democrat Party is to their communities. Why it's taken this long, I don't know. But in droves, they are leaving the Biden camp. And we now have current members of Congress in the House and Senate, Democrats, that are suggesting that Biden just step down and not continue to run in 2024. They see the writing on the wall just like the rest of us do. What we're watching happen with Biden continuing to be in our White House is elder abuse, plain and simple. This man needs a walker or a wheelchair, or at very least a cane, and he needs not to speak off prompter. When he does, he says shit that is absolutely not true, and he babbles on about things that have nothing to do with what the conversation is. How many times have you heard him refer to his own son, Beau Biden, saying that he died while serving in Iraq, when we all know that that's not true? His son died a civilian out of the service right here in America of brain cancer. Yet the commander-in-chief of our military stands up in front of military veterans and military service members at bases when he goes and gives speeches. And he loves to tell the story about his son died while serving over in Iraq. That's the guy running the country. That's a mental health issue if he doesn't know how his own son died. And that's just one of many things that he said. And this isn't about lying, okay? All politicians, left, right, center, Republican, Democrat, I don't give a damn. They all have said shit that's just not true. They make up shit, whatever it takes to spin their narrative. That's not what we're talking about here. When it comes to Joe Biden, what he's saying is a mental health problem. And sadly, his handlers don't care. Here's an example of his mental health problem. Biden has now issued an apology to several prominent Muslim American leaders after he openly questioned the accuracy, as did everybody else, to include our military, our Department of Justice, our FBI, our CIA, and all the other analysts across the globe. The death toll figures that were being put out by the terrorist organization Hamas in Gaza. During a press conference back on October 25th, a few days after Israel started attacking Hamas because of what they did to Israel, Biden openly questioned the numbers of casualties in Gaza, which were reported by Hamas government, a terrorist organization. I have no notion that the Palestinians are telling the truth about how many people are killed, Biden said. And that's a true statement. They're going to spin this however they see in their benefit. Well, it's in their benefit to do so because that's the only way to try and get the world to turn against Israel. They're holding Palestinians, innocent Palestinian civilians, as human shields. They're conducting their military operations in hospitals, in schools. And yet they want to bitch and complain and cry about how many people have been killed. Now, I know it's obvious. I'm a combat veteran. I've been there, done that there are casualties, civilian casualties in war. There's no way to avoid that, especially when the enemy is utilizing places to attack us or them, as in Israel, from places that you would not normally attack. Schools, churches, in this case, mosque, hospitals, and that's what they're doing. Imagine for a moment, during World War II, if so much uprising from the left about the amount of Germans that were being killed for us to try and take out the Nazis would have caused us to pause in our air campaign and our ground assaults. Imagine that for one moment. We stopped trying to kill the Nazi machine because it's not politically correct, or it's unpopular, or look at the proportion of the amount of German citizens that are having to die in this bombing campaign. The world would be totally different today. It's no different than how we ended World War II when it comes to Japan, dropping not one but 2 atomic bombs. Look how many civilian casualties took place on those 2 bombs being dropped just to take out the Japanese war machine. And it did. And sadly, yes, there are civilian casualties. Was Japan or Germany using their people as human shields? No. But this enemy is. Goes on to say, I'm sure innocents have been killed, and it's the price of waging war. But then Biden met with 5 Muslim American leaders the day after his comments about reporting the Gaza deaths. During the meeting, Biden listened to the leaders describe people they knew who were directly impacted by the conflict in the Middle East. And he said, "I'm sorry. I'm disappointed in myself. The commander-in-chief of the United States military, the president of the United States, apologized to them and said he was disappointed in himself," he told the group, and that's according to the Washington Post. The Muslim American leaders who met with Biden urged him to show more empathy to the Palestinians, and Biden hugged the participants at the end of the meeting and said he would. According to data from the Hamas-controlled Ministry of Health, more than 14,000 Palestinians in Gaza, including many women and children, have been killed in the weeks of war. Israel has suffered more than 1,200 fatalities when they were attacked, most of those being civilians who were killed when Hamas terror group fired a sneak attack on Israel on October 7th. Not only has Biden faced criticism and pressure from his own administration on the strategy taken in Gaza, some prominent Democrats have also publicly disagreed with the president's response to the war, such as Rashid Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Anita Presley, AOC. You know the gig. This goes on and on and on. They support terrorists, not those that support God. Hamas' recent terror attack on innocent Israeli citizens is a reminder that Joe Biden's immigration policies and his policies on the Second Amendment attacks are putting America's security at risk. The entire world, including nations and groups that want to kill Americans, know that there is no better time to enter the United States illegally and conduct jihad. And those unsurprising that a record number of migrants on the terror watch list are being arrested at our southern border. And sadly, we have no clue how many have gotten through. But our own FBI says it could be thousands. Our Border Patrol agents are highly skilled, but with a focus on end processing and policies that undercut their core mission. Dangerous people are bound to slip through the cracks, and they are. A July Inspector General report revealed that in April of 2022, Border Patrol arrested an illegal alien in Yuma, Arizona, for instance. They released him 2 days later after information they obtained indicated that he was on the terrorist watch list. Why? Why was he released? Later, after checking on a flight, it was discovered that this illegal alien was in fact positive on the terrorist watch list, was a direct match after more than 2 weeks of being released in our country. And he was thankfully rearrested. More than enough time to carry out an attack. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris like to talk about the root causes of illegal immigration. In other words, the push factor. But it's the pull factors of their governance that are at the core of a self-inflicted crisis that continues to put all Americans in danger. We've all seen the images of migrant caravans and illegal aliens surging across the border with Mexico. Border security does not end at our southern border. We must remain just as focused on interior enforcement efforts and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and their mission. Since his first day in office, Biden has worked to incentive illegal aliens to make the dangerous journey to America's southern border by decreasing the likelihood that illegal aliens will be deported. One of his first actions, for example, was a moratorium on deportations that was thankfully blocked by a federal judge. Then Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, that no good, useless, wasted piece of human cells, issued a detailed memo that established a list of factors that U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE officers must consider before investigating, questioning, arresting, detaining, prosecuting, or removing illegal aliens from the United States. The radical memo was expanded with another policy that prohibited ICE from initiating immigration enforcement actions and a broader list of locations, calling them protected areas. As the border crisis rages on with national security threats increasing, Biden and Mayorkas remain determined to quietly continue their cohorted effort to undermine immigration enforcement. A troubling new proposal from ICE called Release and Reporting Management, RRM, would increase illegal immigration if implemented, as it both rewards lawbreakers and highly reduces the chance of any deportation. RRM is a program for the entire non-detained docket population, which is nearing 6 million illegal aliens, with many being criminals other than coming across our border illegally, because they were charged with things like rape and murder and sex trafficking of young boys and girls and women. It calls for therapeutic services, housing, social services, and food and clothing banks to those on ICE's non-detained docket. This would be on the American taxpayer's dime, of course, costing well into the billions of dollars. Not only does ICE plan to reward those who ignore our immigration laws, but it also wants virtually no proper monitoring as they await deportation proceedings, which, by the way, could take many months or years, or they just won't show up, which is what happens most of the time. Or we don't know where the hell they're at. A recent report exposed that RRM would ensure that millions of illegal aliens released into the U.S. interior would only have to make annual check-ins with ICE. And 95% of them are never heard from again. Most of those check-ins would not be in person, but rather done electronically. This would complete Biden's gutting of ICE altogether. The Abolish ICE movement didn't go away. They just all got jobs in the Biden administration. For example, Sova Wahan, who is the chief of the DHS Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, believes that simply being in the United States illegally and convicted of rape isn't grounds for being properly deported. Wahan said in 2020, "I don't know that any element of criminality should suffice to being a priority for enforcement, or even any felony for that matter. And I think that part of that has to do with how I view the role of prosecutorial discretion and the importance of looking at the whole person." How can someone like this be in a senior role at the agency in charge of keeping our nation secure? Likewise, Claire Trickett McNutley, Claire Trickler, Trickler McNutley, McNulty, is reportedly leading the charge to implement the RRM. It is unsurprising considering that McNutley is behind ICE's shift to embrace social services over immigration enforcement. During her tenure, ICE put a group that supports abolishing the agency in charge of its program. The fact is, ICE is being abolished from within, just like our country is being destroyed from within. Ronald Reagan once said that communists could very easily take control of America without ever firing a single shot, because we would do it from within. And that's exactly what is happening. It's not just the ideology left that wins from open borders, but America's enemies like Hamas. The continued dismantlement of immigration enforcement means a nonstop flow of illegal aliens at the border that we can't possibly vet. It's putting American lives in danger, and it must be stopped. And it can only be stopped by voting out these 6 son of a bitches that are Democrats. Because I've said this once before, and I'm going to say it again, loud and clearly. The biggest enemy of the United States of America happens to be the Democrat Party and the far left liberals of our society that are teaching our children and running our court and justice systems. Here's an example of that. A California family is very upset that their son's killer, the person that killed their son, was released from prison last week because of a controversial new law in California that prohibits minors from being charged as adults, regardless of the severity of their crime. Jay Williams, now 29, was sentenced to 26 years behind bars back in 2014 for the stabbing death of Santa Teresa High School classmate Michael Russell, who was 15. Williams, also 15, and co-conspirator Randy Thompson, 16, lured Russell into his own backyard to smoke marijuana in 2019, and they took turns stabbing him to death. Local media dubbed the tragedy a thrill killing because Williams and Thompson wanted to experience what it felt like to kill someone, according to their own statements. Both teens were initially convicted of murder charges. They were tried as adults. The 2 teens had journals where they drew and wrote notes descripting of horrific acts. The Mercury News reported they meticulously planned the November 10th, 2009 killing. One chilling aspect of this case is that Jay and Randy selectively befriended Mikey for the exclusive purpose of murdering him. It was a long-term plan to gain Mikey's trust so they could get close to him. Scotty Story, the Russell family's attorney, said, "The unimaginable terror Mikey must have felt being killed by his so-called friends, but the state Senate passed a bill 1391 in 2018 prohibiting anyone under the age of 16 from being charged as an adult. When it came in as a proposition, we absolutely protested," Russell's aunt, Kathy Russell, said. "We wrote letters. We had the community involved, but it didn't work. We did everything we could possibly do, but it was ultimately passed." Thompson had already been tried and convicted of premeditated murder in 2016 and sentenced to 26 years to life behind bars. Because he was 16 years old when he and Williams stabbed Russell to death, he would not have been eligible for early release under the new law. But the conviction of Williams, who was 15 during the killing, was still in the balance. Defense attorney Luis Romero had successfully appealed his 26-year prison conviction on the grounds that police violated his constitutional rights at the time of arrest. Per 6 appellate court documents, allegedly, Romero said, Williams was held in an interrogation room for 18 hours and deprived of sleep and food before police got his confession. Too fucking bad. So is every other murderer. Because Williams was 15, not 16, when he carried out the stabbing, and his conviction was not yet resolved in the criminal system, Story explained, the new California law retroactively applies to him. Williams' case was transferred to juvenile court after the passage of the law. Initially, a Santa Clara County Superior Court judge delayed his scheduling release in 2021 per court records. But on Monday, November 20th, after 13 years behind bars, with stints in notorious facilities like San Quentin, Soledad, and Solano state prisons, Romero said Williams was ordered released by the same court per the Mercury News reporting. Yesterday, we took the day and we all spent it separately because we couldn't be strong for each other, the victim's aunt tearfully said. We're literally broken again. You can't take a person who ultimately wanted to see what it felt like to kill someone. You can't take that person, put him in jail for 13 years, and then think he's going to be any different by letting him out, the aunt continued. He's never shown any remorse. He's a heartless human being. I don't even like to call him a human being. He's a heartless monster. Kathy Russell, who said she lives in the same neighborhood as her nephew's just released killer, said the community isn't safe with Williams in it. It's just a matter of time. Story said the family is terrified in light of the court's Monday's decision and has since relocated and are attempting to live anonymously because they have fear of him coming and killing them. Other members of the community shared the family's fear. A since removed post sharing Williams' face on the community's Nextdoor app page had been engaged with dozens of times, was finally removed and taken down out of fear that he would come kill the people that put it up. Among those who shared the post was Russell's former 8th grade teacher, who asked not to be named for fear of repercussions when Williams gets released. I guess I understand the rationality behind it in general, the teacher, who still works in the district, said of the new California law, but for the safety of others, I think there's a line. If it's a violent crime, if there's death involved, if there was proclaimed, I'm going to do this to see if it's fun, I think there's a case where age shouldn't matter and the law should be applied to keep them put away, not released. I know you can act in a certain way and pretend in jail until you come back to be yourself. The teacher, who also teaches adult classes in the same jail facility. To be completely honest with you, I'm slightly scared because I've been so vocal against him for the past 14 years. I'm not afraid Williams would come after me, but it's a stupid fear in the back of my head that I can't get rid of. And I'm worried about vulnerable people he may befriend. Williams' attorney argued in court that the fact that his client earned a high school diploma, read over 400 books while incarcerated, and had no record of violence while locked up, showed that he needed to no further rehabilitation before his release, citing findings that adolescents haven't reached full mental and emotional developments at the age of 16. Romero said he was pleased with his client's outcome in the passage of SB 1391, and that he hoped the law would work for the children of California. Just because society fails kids from time to time doesn't mean we give up on them, Romero said. That's why these policies were put into place. Parents are busy sometimes. We don't know what the child faced in his home. We can't throw away hope on children when all signs say they're learning and they're looking for us to learn from. Science doesn't lie to us, Romero said. A little girl who's 5 years old and steals a candy from a store could become the doctor or neurosurgeon of tomorrow, he said. But Stoneley said stealing a candy bar versus taking a life are magnitudes of difference. I'm taken back by Mr. Williams' attorney Wood liken this to a 5-year-old stealing a candy bar. I think there's a cavalier approach to addressing someone who has been murdered. I understand there are arguments that the adolescent brain hasn't developed. There's something seriously wrong with that individual. And I don't think it has anything to do with the development of his brain at that time. By reaching the age of 25, he wouldn't be a different person and just say, oh, that was a silly idea. Nor has he ever apologized or shown remorse. Well, defense attorney Luis Romero, I guarantee you, if this was one of your family members or your child, then you would think different. That's the only way to get it to change in your pathetic excuse of a brain that's fully not functioned, and you're a fucking adult and an idiot. So let's lighten it up a little bit, although it's actually a serious story because somebody was hurt. Hopefully I can get through this story without laughing. My wife shared this with me. I read it, and first I thought it was a joke. Seemed like a Saturday Night Live skit. Till I dove deeper in it and realized, no, it's actually factual. It happened. This actually took place. All right, you ready for this? A Florida man was arrested after reportedly admitting to throwing at his wife a bag of Oreo cookies that knocked her over. I'll repeat that. He threw a bag of Oreo cookies at his wife, and she fell over. The Lake County Sheriff's Office arrested John Sandoval, a 70-year-old male who was allegedly upset at his wife about their coffee maker not having any water in it, deputies said, according to Fox 35 in Orlando, Florida. The married couple of 40 years was sitting at the table when they began arguing about the coffee maker. Sandoval then became aggressive, and he threw an entire package of Oreo cookies that hit his wife in the chest, which caused her to fall. A standard Oreo resealable package is 14.3 ounces, which equates to about 0.89 pounds. The husband also allegedly put his hands around his wife's throat while she was on the floor, but reportedly did not restrict her airways. Police did not see any injuries on the woman at all, nor to her throat either, according to the police affidavit. The event went unreported after taking place on a Saturday until the woman's daughter encouraged her to call police the next day in order to press charges. Sandoval's wife is 65 years old, per his substantial charge of felony domestic violence and battery on a 65-year-old. He has been arrested and taken to Lake County Jail. The local outlet reported that Sandoval had a prior conviction of misdemeanor simple battery back in 2005. According to Outkick, Sandoval later spoke with deputies and reportedly admitted he did not lie about it. He said, yes, I took this package of Oreos and I threw it at her. He alleged that he thought he had thrown the cookies at her head, not her chest, but wasn't completely sure as to what happened. He also noted, according to police affidavit, that he had no recollection of ever putting his hands around her throat, and he said he would never have done such a thing. Oreo cookies. The man threw a bag of Oreo cookies at his wife. Now, I've been hit with a lot of shit. All right. And it ain't got nothing to do with my military service or my law enforcement service. All right. I grew up in the Deep South, one hell of an alpha male. All right. If somebody did you wrong, you beat the shit out of them, and vice versa. Okay. I've got my ass beat, and I've beaten plenty of asses. All right. That's just how it worked in the South. And then you become friends, shake hands, and it's over with. It's behind you. I've had more shit thrown at me than you could ever possibly think of. But I can't imagine a bag of Oreo cookies causing you to fall. I do think there's a little more to the story than what is written up in the article by the Orlando News. Minnesota. You all know what's happening up there. It's a freaking disaster. It is being taken over by radical Islamic jihadist type Muslims that just, it's pathetic what's happened to that once beautiful state. The Minneapolis Federation of Teachers Local 59, we will refer to as MFT, called for a members-only meeting to push a resolution that acknowledges harm done to Jewish residents in the Minneapolis public school system, we will refer to as MPS. The meeting comes after a backlash ensued when the teachers union passed a resolution that called for a repeal of anti-BDS boycott, diversity, and sanctions legislation, claiming the measures suppress Palestinians' speech rights. Per a flyer obtained by Fox News Digital, the teachers union will hold a meeting on November 29th to vote for a resolution acknowledging harm and affirming the purpose of our union. At the November 29th MFT meeting, members will introduce and speak in support of a resolution that acknowledges harm to the Jewish members, Jewish students, and Jewish families by the previous passed Israel-Palestine resolution and reaffirms the purpose of our union, the flyer reads. The October 25th resolution strayed far from MFT's mission by not mentioning students or educators. MFT admitted that there was unnecessary division caused in the community by the October 25th resolution. No shit. Well, it was not MFT members' intent. Bullshit. The Israel-Palestine resolution passed in our October 25th meeting harmed many Jewish members, students, and families while causing unnecessary division within our union. And we regret this, the flyer said. The local teachers union passed a resolution back in October to condemn the role of the United States government plays in supporting the system of Israel occupation, which lies at the root of the Palestine-Israel conflict. In addition, the resolution called on Minnesota state lawmakers to repeal anti-BDS legislation. Jewish parents and other concerned citizens were outraged by the MFT's statement on the Israel-Hamas war, calling it anti-Semitic and hostile. The Jewish Community Relations Council of Minnesota and the Dakotas organization sent a letter earlier this month to interim superintendent Rochelle Cox and the MPS school board to condemn the MFT. The letter signed by over 800 stakeholders began by describing the difficult current political climate for Jewish people, not just in Minnesota, but across America. This is a remarkable, difficult time to be Jewish, but it is especially hard to be a Jewish teacher, student, or the parent of Jewish children. The tremendous surge of anti-Semitism in our school, the letter stated, for over a month Jewish children in Minnesota have been bullied, gaslit, harassed, threatened, and even assaulted simply because they're Jewish. The letter continued, MFT's resolution is anti-Semitic and hostile to our children, MFT staff, and puts our larger community at further risk because of their Jewish identity. Jeremy Cohen, the Jewish father of one child in MPS, said the MFT resolution was an inappropriate move. To be clear, I think I'd feel the same way. I know I would feel the same way had the resolution been drafted any other way, because I just don't think global politics has a place in the teachers' union. Amen. I agree with you, and so does 99.9% of America. These radical, left-wing, liberal teachers are destroying our public school system, one student at a time. A lead United Nations agency overseeing food and agricultural policies is expected to issue a roadmap in the coming weeks, which will call on the West, including America, to dramatically reduce its meat consumption. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, will publish its so-called Global Food System Roadmap during the upcoming COP28 Climate Summit in Dubai, which will kick off on Thursday and extend nearly 2 weeks until mid-December. FAO's first-of-its-kind document will recommend nations that overconsume meat to limit their consumption as part of a broader effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And this is reported by Bloomberg. The failure of leading meat and dairy companies to reduce emissions underlines the urgent need for more policy focus on the food and agriculture sector. Jeremy Kohler, the chair and the founder of the FAIR Initiative, an investor network that works with financial institutions to promote climate-friendly agriculture worldwide, said in his recent statement. Food system emissions deserve a place at the top of the table alongside energy and transportation, as they represent an estimated third of the greenhouse gas emissions and 40% of methane, he continued. Remember back when AOC said that cows farting is causing global warming, and that she advocated that we stop eating meat and we kill the cows? Now the UN is doing that. And look, there's a lot of people you'll find right here on YouTube. You'll find it on Rumble. You'll find it all over the fucking internet. They're talking about all kinds of crazy shit that the UN is supposedly doing. They're sending troops into America. They're, on our border. They're telling our military what to do. All fear-mongering, okay? It's just bullshit. This isn't. This is actually what the UN is trying to put forward. Investors hope the first ever publication of a food and agricultural roadmap at COP28 this month will catalyze the transition to 1.5 degrees and more sustainable food system. In addition to issuing guidelines for reduced meat consumption in the West, the FAO is expected to highlight how farmers should adapt to erratic weather and tackle their emissions produced from food waste and use of fertilizer. The recommendations, which the U.S. COP28 delegation may sign onto, that's right, the Biden administration plans to have their delegates sign on to this. Overall, the roadmap will seek to guide policy on lowering the climate impact on the global agriculture industry, which has rarely received such attention at past UN climate conferences. Past COP summits have been far from keen to addressing emissions generated from the global power, transportation, and manufacturing sectors. We've already had solutions to tackle climate change. Many of these solutions, whether it is agroforestry, restoration of soils, sustainable livestock, or fisheries management, have multiple benefits as they can support the sustainable use of biodiversity as well as help with food security. Multiple benefits from the same solutions that only Agriculture and Food System Officer Kevin Zahid, the director of FAO Office of Climate Change, said last week. Global food system, which includes land use change, agricultural production, packaging, and waste management, generates 18 billion tons of carbon dioxide per year, the equivalent of 34% of total worldwide emissions, according to a March 2021 study published by the Natural Food Journal. So they want us to all be vegans, no longer eating meat. Even though here in the United States, we are the only country who sees to it that our farming is regulated with gas emissions. Yet, we have to stop eating meat. Things you couldn't make up if you tried. And folks, finally, I want to share with you how our Constitution is once again being just disintegrated, trashed by people that are supposed to support it. The state of Maryland. Maryland State Police will continue enforcing the state's handgun law despite a federal appeals court ruling that the licensing requirement is unconstitutional. This is the definition of pissing on the United States Constitution, period. And the Department of Justice and FBI are nowhere to be found to correct this crap. At this time, the HQL law remains in effect, and there are no immediate changes in the process to purchase a firearm in the state of Maryland. The department wrote in the agency-wide advisory after last week's ruling, Maryland's handgun qualification license requires applicants. This is just to buy a handgun, not a concealed weapons permit, just buy a handgun. You have to submit to fingerprints for a background check. You have to take a 4-hour firearm safety course with a live fire component. And then you have to wait 30 days or more for it to be approved by the Maryland State Police before you can even go purchase the handgun, which then requires another application and a 7-day waiting period. Last Tuesday, a 3-judge panel of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled 2-1 that the law is overwhelmingly burdensome and cannot stand under the 2022 landmark Supreme Court decision that a firearm regulation is unconstitutional unless the government can prove it is consistent with the nation's historical traditions, which it can't. The challenge law restricts the ability of law-abiding adult citizens to possess handguns, and the state has not presented the historical analog that justifies its restriction. Indeed, it's admitted that it could not even find one, Judge Julius Richardson wrote in the court's major opinion. But the Maryland State Police Licensing Division said it will continue enforcing the law unless a federal judge, not a state judge, says otherwise. Maryland officials have 14 days to file for a rehearsal before or appeal before the full court. Striking down Maryland's oppressive handgun qualification license requirement affirms that the burdensome process infringes on the rights of law-abiding citizens, the NRA's lobbying arm executive Randy Koch said. But if the people responsible for making sure laws passed in America are followed, and in this case, it's the Maryland State Police, backed up by their Democrat governor, that doesn't care what the courts have to say and will do things their own way regardless, then they are shitting and pissing on the United States Constitution and our justice system. And that should be a wake-up call for everyone in America. Folks, you had many places to be tonight. Chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. I want to tell you real quick, Thursday night, I will not be doing the show because I'm going to be watching what I want you to watch as well. Fox News will be hosting a debate between the governor of Florida and the governor of California. And it is scheduled, I believe, from 8 to 9 or 7 to 9, which takes us way past my showtime. So I will be glued to that, hopefully to watch Ron DeSantis destroy that liberal piece of shit Newsom in California. It's not for any particular reason other than they just challenge one another to do a debate live on TV. And I, for one, can't wait to watch it. And I hope you will tune in and watch it as well. And then we will talk about it next week on Monday. You had many places to be tonight. Chose to be here with me, and for that, I'm forever grateful. Thank you very, very much. In the description of this video, once it goes up, as well as just a regular video, as well as all my shows and all my videos, you can see the other places you can follow me on social media. I'm back on Twitter, which is now called X. Please go there. You will be surprised, especially if you were there before and you left that platform because of all the liberals that were controlling it. That's changed, my friends. It is now a wonderful place for conservatives to talk about conservative values and to spread real information that the liberals and the Democrats cannot stand to hear us talk about. It is almost a must. Please go there and follow me, and I will follow you back. Also, you can see the other locations as well, such as Rumble, Facebook, and my own website, douglasducote.com. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving in the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders and their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families in our country. May God bless the United States of America. And may God bless each and every one of you. Have a blessed evening, folks. Whatever you're doing, please be safe. Please watch your six. Watch out for your family and friends. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. And if anything breaks between now and my next show, I'll be sure to do a video about it or come on and do a live show about it. Till then, take care and have a blessed evening.